In June of 1900, a man paddled out of Thomas Bay with no coat, no hat, and an empty canoe. No partner, no supplies. The only thing he carried out of that wilderness was a single chunk of gold-bearing quartz, and a fear so complete that he used that gold to buy a one-way ticket to Seattle and left Alaska forever that same day. He gave only one name, Charlie. He refused to tell the man who recorded his story, a young prospector named Harry Colp, anything more. Because Charlie didn't care about the gold he'd found. He cared about what he'd heard. A voice, out in the trees, where no one should have been, calling him by name. This is the case file on the most dangerous sound in the Alaskan wilderness. A sound that doesn't chase you, it calls you. And the people who answer don't come back the same, if they come back at all. To understand Charlie's story, you first have to understand the place. Thomas Bay sits on the mainland of southeast Alaska, swallowed by the Tongass, the largest temperate rainforest on Earth. Black water, near vertical mountains, and rain that almost never stops. But long before any prospector arrived, the Tlingit already had a name for this place. They called it the Bay of Death. Around 1750, a mountainside above a Tlingit village gave way. A landslide buried the settlement in seconds, more than 500 people gone. For generations after, the Tlingit avoided the bay. Not as superstition, as memory. They knew exactly what this land was capable of. And by 1900, the forest had grown back over the graves, but the land never forgot what it had buried. So when an old Tlingit man told four young prospectors there was a fortune in gold waiting in Thomas Bay, he was sending them into a place his own people had learned to fear. In 1900, Harry Colp was 19 years old, sharing a one-room shack in Wrangell with three other prospectors, Charlie, John, and Fred. The tip was simple and irresistible. A mother lode out in Thomas Bay. The kind of strike that ends a man's money troubles forever. Charlie went in first, and he found it. He chipped off a piece of quartz veined with gold to prove it was real. Geology can explain the scars on this land. It can't explain what Charlie said was living in them. As he pushed toward the ridge, he said the silence changed. It stopped feeling empty and started feeling intentional. The way he told it, the things in the brush weren't quite men and weren't quite animals. They didn't stand like men. They didn't move like animals. They smelled of wet fur and stagnant salt water, and they didn't attack. They watched. Then, he said, the mimicry began. A whistle from one direction and from the other, a cry for help in a voice he knew. A voice that had no business being within 1,000 miles of Thomas Bay. And he understood what was happening. He wasn't being hunted. He was being lured, drawn away from his canoe toward the mudflats, where the tide would finish the job. So Charlie ran. He left his gear, his coat, his hat to the thorns. He threw himself into his canoe and paddled until his hands bled, and he never looked back. Here is the part that has kept this story alive for over a century. The Kushtaka doesn't overpower you. It doesn't have to. It uses the one sound a human being is wired never to ignore. The cry of a baby alone in the dark, the scream of someone in distress, or worse, the voice of someone you love, calling your name, from somewhere you know they cannot possibly be. And the moment you answer, the moment you step off the trail toward that voice, you are doing exactly what it wanted. Walking on your own 2 feet toward the water. In Tlingit tradition, the creature is called the Kushtaka, the Land-Otter Man. The Kushtaka comes for the vulnerable, the lost, the freezing, the drowning. Sometimes it appears as an otter. Sometimes it takes the shape of a friend, a relative, a face you trust. And here the legend splits in two. In some tellings, the Kushtaka is merciful. It saves the dying from a cold death. But that salvation has a price. Because to save you, it has to make you one of them. It strips away your humanity and turns you into a Kushtaka, and your soul is kept from ever moving on, never resting, never reborn. In that telling, the most frightening thing the Kushtaka can do to you isn't kill you, it's keep you. Charlie never went back. He left his gear, his gold, and his future to rot in the devil's country. To him, the trade was simple, his future for his soul. Thomas Bay is still there. The Baird Glacier still retreats. The Bay of Death still keeps its 500 secrets. And hikers and bush pilots across the southeast still report voices in the trees with no source. Most of it has an explanation. Most of it. So if you're ever out in the Tongass, in that gray half-light where the forest and the water blur into one, and you hear a familiar voice call your name from the fog, remember Charlie's empty canoe. Don't look back. Don't answer. Because in the Tongass, some voices aren't looking for help. They're looking for company. The far north is full of stories the world refused to believe. Subscribe to Vanished North and tell me which Alaskan legend I should open the case file on next.